CEO founder of Cyber and GRC Solutions and your host of Cyber Podcast with Nimisha. I am truly humbled for all this incredible support so far. Thank you for sharing and being part of this journey. I'm deeply grateful to all our inspiring leaders and especially to you, our listeners, for making every conversation worthwhile. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Cyber Podcast with Nimisha. I am joined today by a very special guest, Jason Ha, Chief Information Security Officer at Ethan Consulting. Many of you already know him and the incredible work he has done in the world of cybersecurity. When not wrangling around his 2 young boys and answering yes dear to his wife of 23, Jason is passionate about securing organizations and individuals from current and future cyber risk. No stranger to the world of cybersecurity, he has been working in this world for nearly 24 years across diverse sectors, right from Big Four consulting, Australian IT providers, local organizations, etc. Jason's core focus is to help organizations understand cybersecurity in plain English and provide practical ways to improve cyber breaches. In his current role as a CISO at Ethan Global, he is responsible for continual uplift of cyber capabilities at Ethan through risk-aligned and pragmatic approaches. Before we dive in, I just want to let everyone know that me and Jace have worked on multiple cybersecurity projects together, and he's one of the most approachable and supporting CISOs out there. His practical insights, depth of knowledge, and collaborative approach has always been invaluable in all the projects we have tackled together. Let's kick off with our first question today, Jace. Tell us a bit about your journey to becoming a CISO and what drew you into the world of cybersecurity and risk.
Yeah, I would say that I fell into cybersecurity some 25 years ago, even before they called it cybersecurity, right? So back in the old days, where it was referred to as information security. So I actually started my life in networking, as a lot of security practitioners probably did at the time. And then this wonderful cyber stuff or security stuff started to come out, like firewalls and things like that, right? Life was simple back then. Back then there were firewalls, there was antivirus. So from that point, I think the environment and technology as we knew it became more complicated, and through varying different roles, both from a technical perspective, from a consulting perspective, from an architecture, and then eventually in different management roles, I ended up becoming a Chief Information Security Officer. So quite a broad and long journey to getting to that point, but I think really the inflection point through that journey was getting an understanding of risk, or the concepts of risk, and the benefits and the requirements of actually engaging with business stakeholders.
That's a fascinating journey, and to hear from leaders like you how you move into leadership roles in cybersecurity. Thank you so much, Jace, for sharing your insights. Now, this is something I've been really curious about. What do you think cyber maturity, or why do you think cyber maturity is so critical for organizations today?
I think most people would understand, especially your audience, Nimisha, that cybersecurity is a key risk for most organizations, and ranked the first, if not the second, in terms of enterprise risk profile these days. And what comes with that is the need for an organization to become more cyber resilient. Right? We're seeing a transition from the term of just improving our maturity of cyber to really understanding what does it mean to be resilient, what does it mean to have a risk-based approach to cybersecurity, how do we ensure that we're implementing the right types of capabilities and controls, how are we structuring our teams, and the way the organisation responds to cyber correctly, so that if and when it does happen, and I'm not a big fan of the whole sky's falling thing, and if it's not, if it's when, that type of mantra, but should the organisation experience a major cyber event, they are equipped to handle it as effectively as they can.
Right, that's true. It absolutely makes sense. I mean, like, it's not about a checkbox anymore. It's about more about a business enabler, which everyone needs to think about these days. So yeah, that makes sense. Love that how you framed it, Jace. Actually, let's move into the next one. What are the biggest changes you have seen in cybersecurity landscape over the last 5 years?
I would actually say in my opinion, a majority of the change has actually come at the executive board awareness level and regulatory implications. So what we saw was basically, previously cyber was very much a technical domain problem. It sat under IT for a long time. Organizations were challenged with dealing with cyber-related technical fires. However, because of the number of large profile incidents that we saw and the impact to organizations, we started to see boards and executives take cyber a lot more seriously, not only becoming more aware of the impact to the organisation of cyber-related threats and risks, but also from a regulatory standpoint, government's also starting to step in and be more active, not just in terms of defining legislation or regulatory requirements, either based on industry or geography, but enforcing those. And we've seen very recently, even in Australia, some of those regulatory bodies taking a lot more harsher action towards organisations who haven't demonstrated sustained cyber programs and a focus on improving cyber. So in my opinion, that's probably really the main area, and as a result of that, we see the cyber industry respond naturally to that. So even with frameworks like the NIST cybersecurity framework, which I guess most organisations and cyber practitioners would use as a baseline of measurement of an organisation's cyber maturity, we saw the introduction of 2.0, which brought about a strong focus on that risk domain. How do organisations actually look at, measure and govern cybersecurity risks so that they are actually making the right decisions in terms of investments and capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely, Jace. I think it's been, a complete wild journey last 5 years, how like new technologies have evolved, regulations have evolved, and especially I think more expectation on cybersecurity leaders too these days actually, and with all the threats evolving and new tools exploding, I think it's more expectation. Cybersecurity leaders have also increased these days. So thank you for sharing your insights, that's really helpful. Let's talk about something I think our listeners would be, love that too. What keeps you up at night in terms of emerging cyber threats?
Look, I think in terms of things that are emerging, people these days often talk about things like AI, and AI is a very broad domain, but I think from a cybersecurity person standpoint, really what we're facing into around the corner is the introduction of this notion of agentic-based AI systems. So not the ChatGPTs and the LLM style generative AI that we're coming to terms with starting to manage. It's more of that concept of, if systems are automated and agentic and they are interacting with people and with other systems and each other, how are we going to manage that? In the world of security, we struggle with identity management as it is now, let alone in that world where these systems are going to be interfacing in all sorts of different ways with different rights and permissions and access. And so trying to get our heads around how to govern that environment without, disrupting the velocity that we've come, quite used to now in terms of how AI rapidly not just responds but transforms what people do from a day-to-day basis. That's actually going to be a really fascinating area.
Yeah, totally get that, Jace. I think it's a matter about constant vigilance, and the way you said it absolutely made sense. So let's shift gears and talk about AI. So what role is automation or AI currently playing in your maturity roadmap, basically?
So I guess within Ethan ourselves, we've always been very strong champions of, say, automation and harnessing capabilities along those lines. And different people will have different philosophies. But I guess if we look at AI programs that have generally failed, they've been people replacement AI programs, right? So someone's gone along and said, maybe I don't need this role anymore because I can get an AI system that seems to do the same thing. So therefore, we'll look at changing the operating model of the organization in order to get a better outcome, faster output, increased profit, etc. We've never really looked at it that way. From our perspective, it's always been about task acceleration. So using AI to actually accelerate the time it takes for people to do often repetitive or complex tasks or error-prone tasks, right? So if we're able to understand fundamentally what those tasks are. And in cyber, we have heaps of tasks at an operational level, at a governance risk compliance level, at a reporting level. So if we're able to use AI systems to basically accelerate those tasks, once we have a pretty good understanding of what those tasks are and how we govern those tasks generally, then we're actually able to harness quite a lot of that AI capability. So we've seen that in our own automation of things like security assessment, penetration testing, prioritization of vulnerabilities, even testing of controls, right? So as part of our risk reporting and validating our risks rather than doing it manually once a year, we've now got AI-based systems that we can use to more regularly test our control environment to give us a better real-time view of our risks and control posture.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, Jace, thank you for sharing your insights. Definitely, AI is a game changer, and but it always needs human intervention to run it ethically. So I completely agree on your points on that. Okay. Next one. If cybersecurity were a movie, what would your career be? Like comedy, action, thriller, or I know this is a funny one, but yeah, that's. I love this.
I'd probably say it's probably a combination of everything based on my tenure. Like I'm certainly not one of the oldest cyber professionals around, but I feel like I've been around. When I go to guest lecture at unis, I feel like I've been around for a long time now. To me, it almost feels like more like a series of comic strips, right? As opposed to necessarily a movie, because sometimes that's what it feels like. It doesn't quite roll from one thing to another. It's very much you're jumping from one thing to another thing, and those themes can feel quite different from not just from one day to one day, but even within a day. So I'd say there's definitely moments where it feels like you're in a action thriller spy movie when you're dealing live with incidents that might be occurring. Sometimes it's actually quite comical, especially when you're trying to interface with different business stakeholders and or users. Sometimes explaining basic concepts of cyber to them. But at the same point in time, there's a lot of fulfillment and joy, especially when you're engaging with the emerging talent from a cyber perspective. So whether it's students, and at Ethan, we're very privileged to have an Indigenous program where we're able to actually offer cadetships to Indigenous kids and bring them through a pathway of IT. And I've personally been able to coach and mentor some of our cadets down the pathway of a cyber career, so that's been quite rewarding.
Yeah, I would totally agree, Jace. I think it has all the elements to be a blockbuster movie. I mean, sometimes occasional villains, plot twist, and suspense, and I feel like it's completely makes a blockbuster. Our career in cybersecurity, it's been a wild ride always. So.
So I feel like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a cyber cinematic universe.
True. That's true. Oh my god, yeah, that's really makes sense. Yep. Okay, all right. Before we close, I have one last question for you. Which gives you more anxiety? Zero-day exploits, your own family, friends, colleagues clicking on phishing links?
Between the two, I'd say definitely the latter. Because whilst the notion of, I guess, a zero-day exploit and the unknown of when it could happen and come is obviously quite concerning, I feel organisations who have invested in a mature IT service management aligned process for understanding risk, understanding vulnerabilities, and managing those, which we've been fortunate to do at Ethan, can stay abreast of these issues when they arise. Right, we've got a good communication plan internally and an action resolution plan to address those things. But when you get a call from a friend or family member saying they accidentally clicked something, that's very pervasive, as we all know.
Yeah.
And the reality is that cyber criminals and scammers are becoming increasingly sophisticated. We talked about AI a moment ago. They're using AI very effectively now to drive some of these campaigns and target users. A lot of the times, the correspondence that they're getting is very believable. Quite easy to interact with, right, and fall prey to actually engaging with it. So, for me, that's probably a very, very concerning aspect, and there's definitely a lot more work as cyber professionals that we can do, not just focusing on protecting organizations and environments, but definitely in terms of online safety and well-being. And I guess a good friend of mine, Brian Hay, who is probably well known in the industry for his cultural cybersecurity business. We've had the opportunity to work together on a few times, and Brian really takes it seriously in terms of educating not just corporate users but also users at home and their family and community. And cyber begins a lot of times at home, right? Because that's where a lot of the day-to-day and the personal interactions that happens. Your guards are down sometimes when you're in the home front. So I really admire Brian for his work in that space.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that, Jace. Sometimes I feel it's not the vulnerability, the zero-day exploits. It's a friend on a barbecue, clicking on a link which is like he should not. So it makes more worry to me, like all the family and clicking on those spams and getting so many things which is not required at that moment. But thanks for sharing that insights. So I think this brings to the end of our podcast today. A huge thank you, Jace, for sharing your insights and experience. It was real pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Nimisha. It's great to be here.
And this brings to the end of our episode today. Thank you, Jace, for sharing your insights and experience, and thank you for joining the show today. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. Wait for more conversations on all things on cyber. Until then, stay safe, stay curious.